Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Beyond Sunday podcast. We're talking about season 1, episode 5.
Wait. What are you doing?
Look at us
What is-
go.
what is that?
What are you talking
Got
about?
the Saxy Jack voice going on? What is that?
I'm trying to kind of lower my voice a little bit because my voice has been strained.
Came in with the city line at the dark voice. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
What is this?
that's what it's about. It's like, they're saying like if you're gonna do a podcast, you gotta find kind of a certain level of sexiness to be able to
I
deliver.
told you not to listen to those podcasts about how to do podcasts. It's a scam.
I'm just doing my best, for real. You got to give me grace today. My voice is a little messed up. It is Wednesday, but I'm still recovering from graduations. Remember, I said graduations.
Got a month of celebrations.
Graduation season. Yeah, it's a party month in the Sheets household, and so my voice is feeling it. And so I'm still kind of recouping a little bit. So my voice might crack and squeak or sound really high or do
like,
some weird things.
Like Grover.
Or maybe Sesame
right.
Street. Yeah. But hey, here's the reality. It is Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
And you know what they say on Wednesday?
Happy Wednesday.
Bro, I do not know what that was. But yeah, somewhere in the world, somebody sounds like that when they say Happy Wednesday. But it's Happy Wednesday, right? Like, don't you say that on Happy Wednesday?
Yeah, I say Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Sure.
Judy
Yeah,
from
sure.
church says
sure.
happy, not holy day, happy,
Hump
not
day?
hump day, not hump
Not,
day.
not Home Day.
She
So we
says
got- we got
happy hope day, happy hope.
Happy
Hope Day.
Hope
Okay,
Day.
that's interesting.
Jody, have you ever said Happy Wednesday?
No.
No, okay. Listen,
I can't lie.
They got Sunday Fun Day, so
Right.
we're going with Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Okay. I like it.
Last week we said
It's-
Winning Wednesday.
Winning Wednesday.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I was thinking maybe we could switch it up this week and be What's Up Wednesday.
What's
Okay.
up,
What's
Wednesday?
up,
What?
Okay.
Wednesday?
I like that.
Everybody, What's Up Wednesday?
I like a What's Up
Right?
Wednesday.
What's Up with Wednesday? The Beyond Sunday podcast. That's
Hey,
what's
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
I see you.
Okay. So here we
Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by City Line Church, where we
City
say
Line
all the
Church.
time, it's the perfect place for imperfect people. And
That's right.
apparently, the Perfectly Imperfect podcast. You know what I mean? We're just following suit. We're figuring this out as we
doing
go.
great.
Jody loved that one.
I
know
did.
that
I
was
liked
a good
it.
one.
She's a fan.
That was a good one.
She's a fan
Yeah.
right there.
She told me she told me she listened to 1.5 of the 5 episodes. So
I knew it, bro. I knew it when she came in here. She
Yeah.
smelled like she ain't listened to none of it.
hey, but our listening base is growing. Like we heard this weekend, at least 2 more people joined. So it was good. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, God gives the increase.
Yeah, Suzette gave a shout out last Sunday, and I'm sure I heard 3 people clapping. So it was good. It was good. I'm excited about that, and it's fun. This is a beautiful thing, and we're excited about the podcast. I can't go any further until we always do some shout outs. We like to shout out our sponsors.
Yes, we do.
Last week we told you about Cassidy's Corner, and hey, you know what I'm saying? Best bagels in town. If you are down with the best bagels in town, you got to get on down to Cassidy's. All right, get on down to Cassidy's. They got everything
You
bagel.
heard it
They got
here.
plain bagel. They got jalapeno bagel. They got all kinds of bagels.
Everything.
Sourdough
baby.
They
got
bagel,
an
everything
strawberry
bagel.
cream cheese.
They got all of it.
Avocado and lemon pepper.
There you go.
Go off.
lemon
There you go.
pepper.
Was that the Desi? Is that what that is?
That's a Jody.
Oh,
I
that's
made
the
that one
Jody.
up.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
made her own sandwich.
Sound-
You know what I'm saying?
That tracks.
Turned it
Yeah.
turned it into Burger King all of a sudden. Have it your way. You know what I'm saying? It was
right.
good. All right.
Yeah.
Got you. That's good. But hey, we've got some special sponsors.
Yes, we do.
Right?
Yes,
we got
we
like
do.
straight out of they're biblical sponsors.
That's right.
Straight out of the 1st century.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I want to give it.
And sooner, the BCE or BC.
You know what I'm saying?
depending on-
Hey, but can you imagine? We want to give a shout out to Matthew's Cash and Carry, for supporting the podcast today. Can you imagine? Why are you losing it on that? You know what I'm saying? I'm not even
Matthews
done.
Cash and Carry.
Matthew's Cash and Carry.
Hey.
Don't you get it? Like Matthew the tax
Yeah,
collector?
no taxation without representation.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah,
you
I'm just
repping
making sure.
Matthew. I see you.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
or like Paul's Tents and Temporary Structures. You got to give him a shout out for supporting the podcast.
Whether you're wandering the wilderness or settling down Bear Sinai, you can get Paul's Tents and Temporary Structures.
There it is, the commercial right there. See,
And don't forget, Cephas's Seafood and Barbecue Buffet.
You
yeah,
said that
that's
so
right. That's right.
cleanly too.
I'm telling you.
That was
It's perfect, isn't
it's
it?
perfect.
I mean, that's right by Peter's Shoreline Fish Grill. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate Peter and
Yep.
Matthew.
You guys did some writing this
And then
week.
there's
Man, I
Gideon's
wanna-
Mighty
I
Warrior
wanna make
Water.
one up.
You know?
Gideon's Mighty Warrior Water.
Yep.
Hey, I could use if you just need to quench your thirst.
Yep, when the best need to be refreshed.
You know. I was not ready for that one.
They only come in cases of 300.
Man, I'm
Such
telling you.
deep Bible nerdiness.
Hey, you're the one that said that we are Bible nerds.
I did
not
say
us.
it. I did say
Listen.
it. And I meant it.
We're just being ourselves. You're calling us out. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? That's fine. We took it to the next level
I
because we
think
knew
I
you were
also
going to be
said
on
you
the
guys were
podcast.
Bible nerdy soulmates. So I think that's what I said.
I mean-
did say that.
We'll take it. We'll take it. Well, those of you that are watching online or those of you are listening to us wherever you might be, you're probably wondering who is on the podcast today. And today I am joined with Pastor Troy. Once again, it is me, Pastor Jack. And we also have Suzette Magana,
Hey,
rhymes with,
lasagna.
and we know that. And then we have Jody
Hey.
Sherliff here in the
That's it.
house. Got it right on the
Got it.
first time around.
Got it right.
I worked
One
on
take
that
wonder.
I tried.
Hey.
I tried, you know. But they are in the house. They're hanging out. We also have Pastor Joshua in the building.
Hey.
Hey,
Pastor
Pastor
in this
Joshua in the
episode.
building. What's up? What's up? Everybody's joining us. We're hanging out. It's a full house today, and we're having a blast already.
Good times, good
Lots
times.
of good things to talk about and to process through. But first, as we always do, let's start with some check-ins. Highs and lows. How's everybody doing? What's the week like? Obviously, it's been a week full of ministry here at City Line Church. But yeah, give me some thoughts, man. How was your week, Troy?
Yeah, week's been good. No complaints. You know, getting things ready at the house. You know, for baby number 3, which is just about 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to say out loud.
Next level, man. Going to the
but-
Mangrum 5.
Yeah, got the got the rocking chair put together.
we call that pre-trauma, that exhale.
Yeah.
All those little tiny baby
Anticipatory.
clothes, you know, they got washed, you know, and dried and put back away. You
Ready
know?
to go.
So, you know, just getting ready. The kids are excited.
Hospital bag packed.
I was just gonna ask that question.
Getting ready
you
to
go.
pack the go bag.
All
Okay,
right.
you got it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Have you? You're a pro at this
Oh
point,
yeah,
right?
by
Like
this-
you
yeah,
don't
at
even
this
have
point,
to. You
I
can
know
pack
what
it in your sleep.
goes in the go bag.
Tell you what.
Be ready for that.
Saving on the down payment for the swagger wagon.
Yeah, getting ready to upgrade the vehicle to a swagger wagon.
That's right, dude.
Okay.
A dad van. You know what
Full-on
I'm saying?
soccer dad van.
Look, you know, it might not be soccer, but it'll be something. You know?
Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, things are all good. You know, the Mangrum house is getting ready to expand, to increase. So we are ready for that. My wife has been doing great. Yeah. So
It's good,
as
She
soon as
looks
it's-
insanely beautiful right
Thank
now.
you. I think she
really
does all the time. But
I agree, but right now, and I think I probably said this a few weeks ago and then a few weeks before that, but she's just extra beautiful pregnant lady.
glowing.
Yeah. She got the mom glow.
Glowing.
Yeah. Next level.
Yeah.
Suzette, how's your week? How's it going?
Oh, you know, there's always big stories being told in
Sure,
the life
sure.
of a therapist. Everything's good. I finished this program this week called Townsend Leadership Program. We're for like a full year with a group of other women, therapists and business leaders. We talked every month and checked in and worked on our problems, and we learned some really great stuff. And like my favorite thing I think is interesting for someone that's been doing therapy for a long time is like I know a lot of the theories, but the experience of practicing stuff from the theories with
Right.
other people is a really wonderful experience. And I also feel like I haven't been a peer for a long time. I feel like I've been, you guys know as pastors, like you're in kind of a leadership position for a long time. It can be lonely,
Sure.
you know, unless you have Bible nerd soulmates sitting next to each other on the
You know,
couch. But,
hey. You know what I'm saying?
but so yeah, anyway, it was a really nice, beautiful experience, I have to say, and it ended this
great.
week. So yeah.
All right. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank
I know it's
you.
a big accomplishment to go through training like that. So, you know,
Yes.
good stuff.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jody, how was your week?
The week has been bittersweet. So we were kind of mentioning a graduation, and I work at a college, and so we've got a lot of my students are graduating, which is just a lot of. Everybody's just in good spirits right now and really excited about it. But it's also kind of sad because this is the end of my treatment with these students. So yeah, I'm gonna miss them, and it's a weird space to hold, to be both like glad that they're graduating but sad that they're leaving. So
Sure.
yeah,
Sure,
but
mixed
it's all good stuff, and
Yeah.
it's an exciting season
That's
at
good.
the college.
That's good. I just realized that Troy's giving me a hard time about my smooth radio voice. You know what I mean? But I didn't explain why. But thank you for reminding me, Jody.
Yeah.
So the reason why my voice is a little messed up, I'm totally fine, except for, again, I went a little hard at graduation, right?
Whose graduation?
That was Micah's graduation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Micah.
Micah.
So Micah graduated on the 17th, as well as others. Nevaeh San Luis, she graduated as well, and got to celebrate both their graduations, and just went a little loud on the spectrum of yells. You know what I mean? And excitement. So, but again, I'm trying to rest up because Zion's graduating. at the end
Another
of the
one is
month.
on the way.
So it's exciting. Like I said, I mean, all that's happening in our family and in our life. But yeah, it's all the twists and turns of navigating life. But it's cool to see God's faithfulness, in it all as well, and be able to. It's fun to be able to celebrate milestone moments and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I'm really excited about that. So it's been a lot of fun. But love that everything's going well with you guys. As we've been talking about throughout this month of May, it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and obviously mental health is something that we don't just want to be aware of in May, right?
Or do we?
I mean, not just aware of.
Yeah, not just aware.
Let's go
of,
beyond
but
awareness.
May's not
Maybe
the-
we do something about it.
Yeah, May's not the only time we talk about it, right? See, yeah. This is how we roll on the podcast. Jody, you're fitting right in. It's good
great.
stuff. It's right.
She's
It's
made
great.
for
Yeah. But as we talk about this idea of mental health, I would love to help people to understand a little bit more, especially for you, Jody, what you do. You mentioned college and college students and them graduating and no longer kind of being in your care. So want to hear from you on that. And then, Suzette, just a little bit more about you and what you're doing as your day job, right? Because I know a lot of people know you here at church as Suzette Magana. But let's talk
Rhymes
a
with
little.
lasagna.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I've been working at a college campus for about 2 years as a crisis therapist. So my main duties are to respond to high levels of crisis. So that could be, students going through a trauma. It could be potentially having some scary thoughts. It could be, we have all kinds of things going on. I get to primarily do that as my role of support, but I also do get to keep a small caseload. So I'm really fortunate in the fact that I get to see some students regularly, because with crisis work, you may not see those students every single week, or something changes or happens and they're no longer in your care, but maybe in another therapist's care. So it's really special when I can have clients that I keep on. But they only get to see me while they're students. So, obviously graduation kind of creates the end of that.
Right.
And it's a really interesting, prior to this, I was working, in like K through 12 settings. And then prior to that, I was working out in the community. And so now to kind of work with very specific, ages and student population, it's just kind of interesting there. Watching students, I think one of my favorite things is like, I'll have students coming in on crisis and thinking they're never going to make it to graduation, right? And then we get into this season and, they're about to cross the stage. And so it's really cool. I feel very fortunate to do what I do. And I love it.
Well, I appreciate you and the work that you're doing. I know a lot of people will never know some of the things that you encounter and that you walk people through and come alongside them as you are helping them journey through life. And so maybe later today we'll probably highlight a little bit of that on the podcast and talking through when you talk about crisis. I'm sure everybody's like, well, what exactly does that mean? And
Sure.
so we'll talk through some of those things. So thank you for letting us in on that. Suzette, what is
Yes.
kind of like your primary focus? So everybody knows marriage and family therapist. I
Which
think
is
it was,
very little has to do with what we do, which is a weird part of our license.
That's why I'm asking, right? Because people just providing clarity. And then I think it was like last Sunday, you were teaching the final piece of the Bread series, and you had mentioned something about somebody telling you you're a relationship expert, or something like that. And so help us to kind of understand an idea of typically your area of focus.
Sorry. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, which is a state licensure, and we're basically for some reason, LMFTs ended up being the main license in California for master's level counselors.
Okay.
I don't know how it happened. Probably advocacy groups. I have no idea. But that's not true in other states. But for us, it's true. So basically, anyone that gets a master's degree in clinical psychology often will go get an LMFT license.
Sure.
I don't know how interesting that is, but it's funny when people ask me when they ask about our job, because it's not often what we do. I do work with couples, like I do work with marriages, and have some specialty training in that. I can only do probably only about a fourth of my caseload can be marital work, because it's really different therapy work. It's
Sure,
really
I
like
bet.
direct and you guys do premarital and pastoral marital counseling. Like
Yep.
it takes a lot of engagement, and you can't sleep in the I don't sleep in sessions, but your brain can't fade in sessions. You really got to be present.
Got to be present. Yeah.
So
Real present.
I used to work with betrayal, and I used to have different specialties when I was first starting licensure, because you feel like you have to kind of stand out from other therapists. But the thing, I'm sure this isn't a surprise for you guys we've talked about this for years, but the thing that I've come to really love more than anything is faith integrated therapy. And I kind of realized that I've been doing it for a long time, and I am good at it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you
which
are.
isn't a big deal.
You sure are.
When you've been doing it for 10 years, it just makes sense. So I'm
Yeah.
good enough for how long I've been doing it, I guess. But I love it. Love it. And so doing that work, I love working with Christians. I love working with people that are struggling in their faith with doubt. I love working with people that have been hurt by churches. I love just all that is so it's such a pleasure to be able to, if I can quote Chick-fil-A, to be able to stand with, to be able to stand with people and, here comes the cheesy therapist statement, hold space for them.
Sure.
I mean it, but it's still
No,
cheesy.
yeah, it's true.
To sit in the painful parts that they don't feel like they can bring anywhere.
Yeah.
And go, all right, Jesus loves you. I love you. Tell me the truth,
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's a privilege to be able to sit with people and do that. So I really love that work. And I
It's great.
don't know what's next in it, but I really do love it. So
Yeah. That's so good.
Such a corrective experience you give, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
corrective
Love it.
emotional experience.
Yeah,
like
it's
Sue
so
Johnson
cool.
says. Let's
Yeah.
nerd out.
And they said
So-
we're soulmates.
Exactly. I think we got two nerd
Oh.
therapists.
You know what I'm
soulmates.
saying?
We knew we were
sitting over
soulmates.
here.
Yeah,
From
we
the very
are.
beginning. We were on a
Yeah.
panel
Yeah.
many years ago
Yes.
on this
No
stage.
kidding.
Yes.
You
We
don't have to say it
know.
twice. We can see
we
it.
remember the date, the time stamp. the
Jody,
fucking series.
Jody said something about family systems. What did you say? You used the word
I don't remember these things. but-
homeostasis.
Oh, yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
That was the day when Jody said homeostasis.
That's when the
up on
relationship
stage.
began.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Like
oh,
yesterday.
girl.
Yeah, speaking my language.
That
yeah.
was it.
Yeah.
For me. That
It was
it
the
for me.
Enneagram for me.
Enneagram.
Yeah, when we started talking Enneagram, I was like, you're the one.
the one.
You're
But
the
se-
seven.
But really,
But
the
not a
seven.
one,
You're the
though.
7.
Okay, and we're gonna
Anyway.
bring it back.
Anyway.
Land that plane and
And here we go.
redirect
Okay,
this
okay,
flight
okay.
over
Troy,
here.
Look at how
are
they
you?
hate
I'm
on
good,
our
man.
love.
Are those-
They
speaking of
hate
numbers,
on
are those
our
ones?
love.
But then again,
Are those
it's their
ones?
podcast.
Those are ones.
Okay, I'm gonna raise my hand, and if anybody can see it,
The pastors are talking about shoes.
You start bringing up numbers. He has ones. I have fours. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Air Force ones?
No, oh,
yeah, no, we're
let's
good. We're good.
continue.
We're good. We won't go back to the Air
Yeah,
Force.
that's not. Let's.
But I love what's happening here because obviously to be passionate about what you're focused on or what you're mostly engaged in. Obviously, Troy and I and Josh and Linda and then others on our team have a unique experience ministry-wise. We don't work in necessarily therapeutic settings or really in an educational setting or private practice, so to speak. But you both have really, really kind of interesting dynamic. So I can be a follower of Jesus, and I happen to be a pastor. You know what I mean? And those seem like real seamless.
Seems like a fit.
Right? Seem like they go together. It makes a lot of sense. But you both are followers of Jesus who happen to be mental health professionals. That, I think, both in the church and outside the church can be kind of interesting. I think there are people who can, quote unquote, call themselves Christian therapists, but not really practice anything Christian. You know what I mean? So give us your thoughts and your insight on, for you, how how do you integrate those things? Being a follower of Jesus, first and foremost, who happens to also be a mental health professional in the context in which you work.
Well, I think it's easier for me maybe than it is for Jody because I don't have a boss, so I do what I want. My boss is Jesus and a very handsome man named Willie.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
So but I got some pull with Willie. So I think so I get to do what I want. I think there's a lot of Christian therapists who don't integrate the way they practice as much as they integrate the culture. So it's more like trying to help Christian therapists trying to help Christians to feel better. I think the spiritual formation, a lot of the work that we do at the church is the thing for me that was a big game changer in terms of actual integration.
Yeah.
Because we get to talk about how our brain heals with certain practices. And those practices are like scientifically researched and proven to be beneficial for the mind, like meditation and that kind of stuff. But then we, as Christians, know that we can do things like meditation and we can do things like contemplative practice. And it's not only like good for the mind in a scientific way, but then we get to center our thinking on hope. And our hope is in Jesus,
Yeah.
you know? And so one of my favorite parts of that is like, we don't just try to have hope for hope's sake, but we actually have hope in him who created us, in whom all things have been created, and other
That's
John
good.
1-ish kind of quotes, you know,
Yeah.
where we get to think about he made us on purpose and we're made for his purposes, that kind of stuff. And so for me to be able to like meditate on that is it centers me in the knowledge of his goodness, and then I feel his goodness, then I feel grateful, and it's just good for your brain. So there's science that talks about how our brain changes and grows, and healthy parts of our brains actually grow and like regenerate is probably too strong of a word, but like new neural pathways grow, which means your brain gets stronger down the road of certain thoughts. When you meditate on good thoughts, your brain gets stronger down the road of good thoughts, you know?
Yeah.
And
I
so
love
good
that.
thoughts is one thing, but on the hope of Jesus is something altogether.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's interesting when knowing that God's created us, our human being, our whole being, when you talk about the brain's ability to create those new pathways, you know, the idea of neuroplasticity is, it's just really unique when you see it through a biblical lens of like, oh, wow, like God is rewiring something. He's renewing something. He's restoring something. So maybe regeneration, you know, is kind of interesting word, you know what I'm saying? But definitely restoring.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Our mind and our heart. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So talking through mental health, obviously I know that Troy and I have kind of a certain idea or understanding just from a pastoral view. But when you think of mental health, we just came off a weekend where we had this incredible Sisterhood Connect event. Shout out to the
Sisterhood.
ladies
Shout out
at
Sisterhood.
Sisterhood. You know, they had just an incredible night. Like I said, Troy and I got to hang out and serve. You guys were instrumental in helping to lead the night with the focus around the idea of health.
Pastor Linda led the night.
Yeah, Pastor Linda
Yeah,
did
she
lead the
did.
night. She did that.
Yeah, she
And
did.
she did that thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I just want to say,
As usual.
Leading well,
proud.
right?
Beautifully
Leading
as
well.
well.
Love well and lead well.
Yep.
Pastor Linda. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
good. It's good. But in addition to that, you guys were instrumental in helping with that as well. And I love the theme that the Sisterhood landed on of this idea of health and wellness.
Yeah.
So when we talk about health and wellness, I think there's just a lot that come to mind of what does that mean. I think there's even some potential myths that kind of are floating out there that maybe some of our listeners pick up on when it comes to what they're hearing about what health and well-being and mental health and all this stuff is, because they're getting it from so many different sources. Tell me about your experience with that as therapists. Maybe Troy and I can chime in on our experience with that when people come to us as pastors. But what kind of things are you picking up on from people? What kind of things are they thinking that health and wellness is? And how would you redirect that if you had an opportunity to talk with them one-on-one? do you find that common that there's a pressure to self-diagnose, or like what is that? Is it a desire just to want to have clarity on what you're feeling and experiencing, or is it just you happen to be on TikTok and you saw this person talk about this thing and suddenly a light bulb went off and you're like, I think I have that. Like, what is it? Kind of a combination, or what
yeah,
are you
and there's I was kind of joking, but there's benefits to it, because I do have clients that come in and go, I do think I have some autistic features, and it's made me go, maybe. And like really the autism in particular and ADHD is having a moment where we're thinking about it differently as clinicians.
seeing? Sure.
And it really is kind of client led or like population led, which is interesting. So I feel kind of bad now to say that, about the self-diagnosing, but there is like this, there's this beauty to the self-diagnostic part of social media, and then there's a drawback. I think there's a lot of anecdotal information, meaning like there will be reels or TikToks that say, let's see if I can come up with a good example. Like, oh, my ADHD makes me stare in the refrigerator, not being able to pick what I want to eat. And then it kind of makes you go, I stare in the refrigerator, not knowing what to eat. I probably have ADHD. And it's not that you say that when you see one reel, but when that becomes an algorithm for you, and you keep seeing reels that say that, you like almost collect symptoms that are tied to something that seems like a diagnosis that makes sense because everyone on the social media is saying it, but they're kind of anecdotal. They're not actually symptoms to it. It might be a feature, but that feature might be true of a lot of other things. There's like so my favorite feature, am I nerding out too much on this, Jody?
This is good, clear.
It's helpful.
So my favorite feature that comes up, and it comes up with depression and anxiety and ADHD and PTSD and all sorts of other acronym letters, diagnoses, is difficulty concentrating. So someone can see difficulty I have a hard time concentrating on this. And I'm like, all right, did you sleep last night? Are you low on caffeine? This, that, this. I can go through like a 20-question assessment before I have an idea of what we're talking about. And if it's just that as a symptom, that's not necessarily ADHD. That could very easily be anxiety. That could very easily be depression, or you're not sleeping enough, or like you're studying too hard.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I think about the complexities of these diagnoses and how you get to them, and also just the complexities that we have as humans. And so oftentimes, like I think about like ADHD, anxiety and trauma often get misdiagnosed because they present really similarly.
Sure.
So if you're seeing something that you relate to on social media, one, I think it's great that there's that ability to see something you can relate to, and it causes that introspection to go, is this what I'm dealing with? What do I have going on? But what gets lost, right, is that could be a lot of things. And then if you have PTSD, if you have trauma and you're treating ADHD, well, you're not really getting to the root of what's going on. Sure. And so that's where it can be kind of difficult when we've got all this information out there, but not necessarily the nuance or the, education to know like how to assess for it and what needs to be assessed for.
And it's getting complicated for us. Like people that I would not have diagnosed with ADHD or autism 10 years ago, I am seriously considering it now and really thinking about it and trying to honor what they're telling me about their symptoms.
Sure.
Because like those two diagnoses in a big way, females have been very underdiagnosed with those two things. I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD, and I have, it's mild, I made it through school, everything's okay. But like I got to a professional level, it didn't impact that, but it has impacted a lot of things in my life that I feel shame that I'm not more grown up about. I'm using air quotes for the podcast listeners. Sure. I don't feel grown up about it. I feel shame about it. And yet I'm trying really hard to be a grown up. I'm working really hard at it. So at some point you kind of go, there is something going on for me that's real, and no one ever noticed it. Because I seem smart and I can speak well and whatever else. I can't think of better things sometimes.
So I just had a flashback. When you were talking about that, because here's what I've learned about Suzette. Suzette could be like she's right in the middle of like full on dialogue, like something totally articulate, something very profound, and then all of a sudden there's like, you can almost see it in her mind. There's like just a rabbit trail that just kind of goes this way. And she's fighting to not consider it. But as soon as she does, it always leads her to like a song or like a show tune or like, and it takes her like all the way back to like, I'm literally like Sunday school. You know what I'm saying, Suzette?
Which TikTok tells me means I have autism for the record. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. It told me that I have autism or ADHD for that symptom.
I'm like-
It's called echolalia. It's a real thing.
Here's the reality. Like we're like, I think it was last weekend. We're sitting in service. Suzette's teaching, and she literally unveiled almost a song for
Oh, yeah,
every point.
I did have a song for every single
And then she sang at the 9 o'clock.
because Emily told me to, and I just listened. Emily Thompson was sitting
Yeah.
in the front row,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I really want to sing the Sandyland song.
I just
And
love,
she said,
so,
do it.
So here's what I love. I think what that does sometimes is one, it helps people to know your unique personality.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty funny, because you should know Suzette, just like you're listening to this podcast and we're just being us. We're just who we are. We're just hanging out. And what's funny to me is when you look at the room, you see those immediately who grew up in church.
Totally.
Because they're just like, oh yeah, I know that song, and they're doing the hand motions to it and all that stuff like that. But people who are new in their faith or like brand new to Christianity, they're like, what in the world
is wrong with this dumb
literally-
brat?
yeah.
I mean, but she only unveils her church songs on Sundays. Like her Rolodex is incredibly
it's,
diverse.
Oh,
vast.
no.
It's vast. It's vast. So I just want to say, I think there's benefits to whatever you're learning about yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Do you remember years ago? I was probably brand new to the speaking team. Do you remember I like busted out on some side thought about how Jesus wasn't white? And then I said, you guys know that, right? And it was
Yes.
totally out of, do you remember that,
Yes.
Pastor
Yeah,
Troy?
oh, yeah, I
It
do.
was totally
Yeah.
out of context to what I was speaking. What was I speaking on? Do
I
you
remember,
recall?
but it mattered that you
It-
said it.
Well, yeah.
Our church became less white that day.
Yeah. I do.
Right. And we're better for it.
I mean, I do. I do remember that comment. I don't remember what you were talking
What
about.
was I talking about that
But
day?
I don't remember that part. But I do think the comment was valid.
Was that
I
during the
cannot
All
believe
You
you
Are You
kept me
Still
on the
There
speaking team,
series?
Albies.
I do think we have to sit in that.
Can't believe you remember the name of
to
the
understand
series.
that sometimes, But it's good.
Yeah,
It's
I think
good.
it was during the Are You Still There series. What is it? The same Sunday you talked about God being a mother hen?
Maybe. I was like how we thought that passage in the
Yeah.
Bible was like where we're, it's in the Psalms, where
Yep.
we're under his wings.
Yeah.
And I was
Like
like,
the
you guys
chicks.
know
Yeah.
that doesn't refer to an eagle. You think that because you're from the United States. That refers to a chicken. And then and then my dad listened to that and he goes, it does refer to a chicken. And I'm like, I knew it. I looked that up.
I love it. I love it. Well, we appreciate the clarity in both the mental health and the theological aspects.
And Jesus
of
not
what's
being
going on.
white?
Yeah,
Okay.
Jesus, yes. It's good stuff. Oh, man.
One of my clients at Color a couple years ago, we were talking about the Bible, and the client goes, something about, well, I think that client said, Jesus wasn't white. I was like, there are no white people in the Bible. Just matter of fact.
With the
She's like,
Romans.
Suzette. I mean, not really.
Yeah, one of them popped up every now and again.
No, white people were barbarians at that time.
Oh man, potentially.
Thanks
But probably
thanks for
not.
having us on, Pastor Jack.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I'm sure all of our listeners,
This is off the rails.
all three of them that may still
Off
be
the rails.
listening,
Welcome.
right, are like, Pastor Jack has totally lost it on this podcast, and they're all sad that my voice isn't loud enough.
can't
because
referee this
I
match.
can't.
Oh,
I can't
it's
referee.
on.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, it's not the make fun of Jack podcast. All right, Pastor Troy. Okay, because we got a lot more podcasts and we'll come out with stuff.
We got a lot of outlines.
Just saying,
Can't
we
use
got-
all your material
you can't-
this
yeah,
early.
We're good. Oh, he's got plenty. He got plenty. But let's move on to the next question so that we can kind of.
Okay.
I want to feel like I'm
focus.
accomplishing something today, and I hope
We've
this is
accomplished a
helpful. No, you guys are very helpful. I appreciate it. But at Sisterhood, I think one of the things that I love that I picked up on is sometimes when people think about mental health or about well-being or just health in general, right? Because I think, Suzette, you've mentioned it before, where like the brain is just another part of the body. And so just like we care about the health of any other part of our body, we should care about the health of our brain. But you were talking about this idea of wellness and experiencing, or actually having different experiences of wellness or of health. So we think mental health, we automatically think, oh, therapy. That's the only thing to do. But Sisterhood kind of explored other avenues of that, and I love how you kind of brought that up, and you and Jody kind of dialogued and talked about that, and Troy obviously saw that. I mean, I see women out in the yard doing Pilates. There's women over here doing stretches. There's women next door doing painting. There's women, I mean, literally going bonkers for bunko, right? I mean,
Bonkers and bunko.
Look. They go bonkers. Here's the deal. I don't know if you, for those that are listening, have ever seen women play bunko. I mean, they take that serious.
Yes. Sure.
You know what I mean? And I'm encouraged by their seriousness.
There is some yelling in bunko.
Yeah,
it is wonderful.
the passion that exudes.
Yeah.
There's more passion than you guys writing cheesy Bible pens for your podcast. There's more passion in that.
Hey, listen.
Almost.
Nothing about those was cheesy.
Nothing was cheesy. Those were all right on, and nobody else has that. You know? But my question was, can you tell us a little bit more about the things that you experienced and why the team went that direction of trying to implement those new things?
I was so happy about that direction. I love talking about sad stuff. You know, it's my job all day.
Yeah.
But I like the idea, if we're talking about wellness, to move away from the difficulties and move towards what the positive, like the good steps that bring us somewhere great, you know?
Sure.
And so, yeah, the team brainstormed a bit, and we have an active, beautiful team that Pastor Linda brought together, and our brainstorms get a little wild, and then we hand them to Pastor Linda and Jesse, and we're like, okay, here, make a party. And then they make a pretty party from it. No, but so we thought about what does wellness look like, and we kind of brainstormed some things that people do to seek good for their bodies and minds and hearts. And we thought about bunko because bunko is so fun, and it's such this community fun experience. Judy from our church has been leading bunko for a long time. She's very faithful in leading that.
Yeah.
And it's this beautiful group of multi-generational women that show up. It's so dope. And so anyway, so we had to have bunko because we wanted to be part of City Line culture forever and ever. Amen. And that kind of represents the fun in the community. And then we talked about Pilates. Shannon's on our team. We talked about bringing Pilates in because Shannon does this kind of restorative body work. You know, Pilates. I do Pilates. If you want to talk about it for the next 2 hours, let me know. But the boys say no. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
But it does. It used to be physical therapy. It used to be part of physical therapy before like Jennifer Aniston made it cool in the 90s from Friends.
Sure.
And now it's like a gym studio, but it's very restorative. It makes your body feel better.
That was one of those moments, by the way.
It was.
That was one of those moments where you're totally talking about Pilates, giving us the instruction, and you're like, you know, like Jennifer Aniston from Friends.
No.
It was like one of those.
That's on track. It was a tree branch that's part of the tree. It wasn't a bunny trail.
I loved it. I was not thinking of Friends,
I
but you
came
brought
back.
that up. It was great. But you did come back. I'm sorry. Continue.
That's okay. I'm fine. Let me reset. Okay, so then we did guided stretching because sometimes Pilates is hard on the body, and so then Emily Thompson, who we affectionately call Ray Ray, does guided
Ray.
stretching, leads the women through stretching, and then we had paint, not paint and sip,
No.
paint and pray.
Paint and pray. Paint and worship.
So Evie brought us the painting, and so painting is such a cool thing for your mind. So it's just so exciting, like the combination of let's bring some good to these women who probably need to sit and talk about sad things and cry. I'm sure they do. But also we did that last time. We talked about loneliness last time. So let's mix it up. It was so exciting to bring an opportunity to have fun together, to stretch together, to move our bodies together, and then to like be creative together. And all of those things are very good for wholeness, for wellness, because they're good for your mind, they're good for your brain, that combination, they're good for your heart. And then because we're together, it's really good for the community. And so anyway, I'm so excited about it. I was more excited on Sunday than I was when we planned it, which I'm an enthusiast. So I don't know how excited I was in the meeting, but I'm sure a lot. But on Sunday, I just felt so happy about these women coming together. Everyone was stoked. So many people brought their yoga mats, which is so adorable.
I saw a lot of yoga mats.
Yeah, and I kept walking into the rooms of the different breakouts to check and see who was where, and I was excited about the number in every group, I went to the paint part, the paint and pray last, and I watched. I'm like, there's so many people in here.
it was a lot.
Sisterhood. They come out for
Yes.
sisterhood events at our
Yes.
church.
That's right.
I met so
That's
many
right.
new people who just joined. I really I cry almost every event, every
Yeah.
sisterhood event, because
It's been beautiful. Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I
only like
love
3
like just
distractions.
hearing that. I remember last year when we talked about this idea of Sabbath, and you mentioned pleasure stacking. And,
Yeah.
and I distinctly remembered in that conversation that for the majority of my life as a follower of Jesus in the church, I always associated pleasure with sin. Right? And so I always
That's a
had
good
this
call.
aversion to seeking out things that I enjoyed because
Yeah.
it somehow felt that I was going outside of God for pleasure.
But
Which is crazy because God has created
Right.
like us and invited us to enjoy being alive, like to enjoy it. We're not supposed to be, like locked up in a room, humming prayers under our breath 24 hours a day.
Right.
We're supposed to be out in the world enjoying life as we partner with God.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like that whole, I'm like, man, to seek out things proactively instead of reactively that I enjoy to do, right? Because like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing well. I need to go do something to unwind before I unravel. Which is a common phrase in my lexicon. Like, let me unwind before I unravel. Because to notice that about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, why don't I have a consistent rhythm of doing things that I enjoy, right? So that I stay healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. As an ongoing just
Yeah.
part of who you are, part of your daily rhythm, routine. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
some of that does come from depending on what kind of church background you may have grown up with. I think sometimes churches to help encourage people to kind of maybe stay in the right direction, maybe kind of overcompensate that with everything that's good, exciting, fun, great, that brings it's bad because it could take you to a wrong place. You know what I mean?
Right.
And not being able to find the joy and the delight. I think that's a really great word when we're talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
wellness and delighting in the things of God, especially when you talk about Sabbath and pleasure stacking. The idea of Sabbath is that we are to delight in God, that we are to spend time in God. And Sabbath or rest in general is a really great way to one, rejuvenate the body because we all have this gift of limits that God has given to us. But at the same time, with that gift of limits, there's a way for us to be able to rest before God where He is rejuvenating us and refilling us, but also we're delighting in Him
Sure.
at the
Yeah,
same time.
Absolutely. When I think what you're speaking to is self-care,
Yeah.
right? I think self-care gets kind of lumped in with that sort of treat yourself mentality, right?
Yeah.
Where
Can we talk about that, Jody? Come on.
Okay.
Help us understand.
Because I do love a little treat myself.
Yeah,
but
well, yeah. So there's the treat yourself, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? But then there's also, I think self-care is a buzzword,
Yes.
a cultural buzzword that you hear everywhere, and everybody has some form or version or idea of what exactly that means.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, can we say that all of those are helpful, or actually accomplishing what self-care should be?
Yeah. Well, and I think when you talk about self-care, I think about the sustainability of it, right? And being able to differentiate that, yes, there are times where, I still, when I go to the doctors, I get a little treat after because I deserve it.
There you go.
But that is not a sustainable way for me to be taking care of myself.
Right.
Right. And so I think about it. I went to a conference, try to make this short story short. Went to a conference and they talked about the differences between grit, resilience, and self-care. And it really clicked for me. Grit being something that we can do, right? We all have to do things we don't want to
Sure.
do. And you can do that for an amount of time. It's not something you're supposed to forever do. So
Right.
if we stay in this kind of grit where we're just pushing through, right? You're staying up late to study for finals, so you're not sleeping and you're not eating. And you can do that for a very small amount of time. But eventually you will burn out.
Sure.
You're going to fall out.
Sure.
And then you need even more of that self-care to then get back, right, to sort of a baseline. So then we introduce something like resilience, and resilience is what you're doing after you sort of fall, right? So you've
Yeah.
done this grit, you've burnt out. The resilience is what you're doing to kind of get back up. I like to think about self-care as what you're doing to help keep yourself from falling, right? So again, it sometimes is taking a nap. Sometimes it's a treat. Sometimes it's boundaries. Sometimes it's hard conversations, right? It's but the idea is that these are things that you're doing on a regular basis to take care of you. So we gave the women some worksheets tonight, and the hope is to start collecting the things that they can do, right, for their mind, for their body, for their spirit, so that there's kind of just a running list that you don't have to think about, like, oh, okay, I was gritting, I fell out, I did my resilience, now I need to get back to my self-care. And it's like, oh yeah, these are the things that I can do to ground myself again. So but yeah, that there's this this idea that self-care has to be flowery and nice, and it should be in some aspects, but it's not always going to look nice, unfortunately, which is a hard thing to teach my clients, is that sometimes it's the way you talk to yourself.
Yep.
Sure.
Right? So those are big doozies to always unpack, but
I have
Yeah.
2,700 things to say from all of that, and hopefully they're on
Yeah.
right.
It's interesting to think of self-care as being responsive sometimes,
Yeah.
and then sometimes proactive. And I think of like, just from like a sensory perspective, when you feel overwhelmed, or like our therapist's favorite buzzword of the day is overstimulated. Out of your window of tolerance is a term that we're talking about a lot, which I can explain if you guys want. But when we're in that place, when we're feeling overstimulated or out of a window of tolerance, feel overwhelmed, we can do something small. Like one thing that I learned when I was working in East LA with mostly Latino population is so many of the moms that I worked with, they would take showers when they were too hot or too cold. Like if they were kind of overexposed to the sun or they didn't have AC or whatever, they would take showers to reset their body temperature.
Wow.
And I saw that as such an interesting self-care, as someone that I get overstimulated pretty often. Like that's a quick, just jumping in the shower really quick and resetting. It doesn't have to be a cold shower. It doesn't have to be an extra hot shower, whatever temperature you like. But for some reason, it resets your body temperature and it really resets your mood.
Sure.
It may not make you feel all the way better when you've been crying all day, but like
Absolutely.
it resets your mood. And I don't know how much that's true of kids. Like I wonder how much that's true of kids.
I mean, I feel like I've seen it in my home with
Is that right?
my kids. At various different times with all of them. It's like there's something to, depending on how long the day has been or what they've had to experience and go through in that day.
Yeah.
There's something to coming home and being like, okay, I'm setting all this down. I'm gonna jump in the shower. Almost like a resetting, like you said, or a regrounding.
Yes.
Because I come out and they know that for them, like they're in school, so they still have homework, or they still have after work they still have work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or something like that. It's just a way to kind of refresh and reset. And I think it does do something mentally to help you kind of refocus on, I put this over here now, and now I'm looking ahead to what's next.
It's such an interesting example. I'm so glad that, to hear that. I think it's such an interesting example because it's a body experience to get in the shower, right? Like you're by yourself and you have time to think and you're not listening to something usually or whatever. But there's just something about the water on your skin and maybe the temperature that resets your mind. And that's a wonderful example of like the integration of the mind and the body.
Sure.
It's a sensory experience that resets your mind, I think that is so interesting. And we're really living in a time in mental health where we're talking about the relationship with the mind and the body in a new way. And it started with the like big trendy conversation about trauma. And I don't mean to put it down when I say trendy. I just mean like everyone talked about trauma for a while.
For sure.
And now we're starting to talk about like sensory overload and overstimulation, which is why the conversation around autism is picking up a lot, because that's the main symptom in autism. But it's really interesting for me as someone who is like I said, I'm often overstimulated. And for me, it comes up like, Troy and I were talking about this the other day. It comes up like throw up, for like I puke. I'm a puker.
Right.
And so, like if I'm stressed out, poor Willie.
Sure.
Poor Willie, you guys. Every morning. And it's just part of it. I wake up and Sorry, Troy. Troy's looking all sick. Look at him. He's a little cringy.
Yeah.
Like
Are you glad you're sitting away
strikes
from me
up
on the
the
couches?
anxiety on this side of the couch.
Right, right.
Let's take a deep breath. We can't get in the shower right now. Take a deep breath.
Relax.
It's
Yeah.
also such a transitional, like I use it a lot when I like to, especially working with college students, I'm always talking about nighttime routines. One, just because they don't sleep. And the shower is consistently part of a nighttime routine because it often signifies a transition, right? You're either getting, you're taking a shower in the morning to get ready for work. If you're taking a shower at night, it's to go to bed. So I have them do it as a way to kind of, again, align the mind and body to go, okay, I'm doing this to start to go to bed. So yeah, it's a pretty
love that.
Kind
powerful.
of takes you back, like from a prayer perspective, on praying on your knees, you know, which
Yeah,
none of us
well,
do anymore.
I was going to mention that. I think what you guys are talking about physically and mentally, like I said, even from a health or wellness perspective, also applies spiritually.
Yeah.
When we talk oftentimes as pastors about embodying this idea of living the way of Jesus. When you talk about the physical response of kneeling before the Lord, or certain prayer postures of lifting your hands, or the way that you're lifting them up, or that you are holding them out, you know,
Like
there's
this?
there's
That's what I do.
there's all these things that we can do that I think, like you said, it engages the mind, but it's also engaging the body. It's also helping us to be able to kind of live this out. And as we're refocusing our mind and our heart towards God, He's doing something in us where He's refreshing us, He's renewing us. There also is a resetting that's happening, right? So I love how even at the sisterhood event that you guys were at, you guys engaged in breath prayers, where it's not just a reminder that God is as close as the air that we breathe, you know, that He's all around us, but that it's actually the physicality. It's the mental stimulation. It's also the intentional attention on, I'm not just breathing in and out here. I'm inviting God into I'm recognizing Him in my breath, and I'm turning something over to Him, inviting Him where I need Him. And so I love that. That brings us to
Thank you. It was Pastor Linda's idea.
yeah. Well, I'll take that idea too, because no, I'm just playing. No, that was hers.
Okay.
I love you, babe. All right, I love you. All right. So Romans 12, I want to kind of end here because we've talked about a lot, and hopefully, I know it's a lot to take in for our listeners. Probably lots of different ideas and thoughts, and even in our camaraderie, I hope they, got some good nuggets out of everything that we're talking about. Romans 12:1 says, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good and pleasing and perfect will." So I think a lot of like what you're talking about in health and wellness does seem to kick against, I think at least when we're talking spiritually too, kick against a lot of the norms of culture, culture being hustle, culture being driven, culture go, everything's quick, fast, hurry. To be able to slow down and to reconnect with God, allow God to renew, like we talked about, the neural pathways of our mind, to give us a physical, mental, spiritual reset, right? This idea of mind, body, soul, so that we're actually living into His goodness and what He's inviting us to, and actually have capacity to live that out. I think there's a lot of people that I know Troy and I have talked about that we have the privilege to meet with and talk with. And I think one of the things as a pastor, no matter who we're talking with, you're trying to help them with a next step.
Yeah.
Right? But as you're trying to help them with the next step, it seems like there's all kinds of obstacles that are in the way of people taking a next step, whether they be parents, whether they be married, whether they be in school, whether they be, there's all these, like, in theory, it sounds nice to them and they want to, but it seems almost hard for them to implement, you know? And so I guess to kind of round out our last few moments together is like, what kind of frustrations do you feel or sense? Like, you're working with people, you're in a helps profession, and you so bad want people to get it, but it seems like there's all these things that are in the way of them being able to implement that, what is a word of encouragement that you can give them to just take a step in a different direction? I mean, I'm trying to find the right word to articulate, but if you can give them one word of encouragement or one piece of insight that would help them to rethink maybe what they have going on in life, to consider going a better direction and focusing in on some of the health and the wellness for their life, both physically and spiritually, what would you say?
I have one for marriage. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
or
great.
Maybe in like loving relationships.
That's great.
So family,
Yeah.
great too. In marriage, and I'm quoting John Gottman, you want to turn towards each other.
Yeah.
It's really you love John Gottman. You post him. He talks a lot about moving. It's so easy for us to turn away or face down. Of course, face our phones, like face somewhere else. And turning towards is a really important posture that he has done research on in marriage. Like turning towards is a decision. I've been married for a long time. I know what my husband looks like. I love him whether I'm facing him or not. And so
Sure.
it's hard for me to decide at times. We'll feel it doesn't feel bad when I'm not turning towards him. It feels more neutral. But when I turn towards him, it feels good.
Yeah.
And there's another marriage theorist named Sue Johnson, who's amazing, who just passed away. I'm taking one of her trainings. And she talks about, I talked about it on Sunday, about, I think at 9 o'clock, but not 11, about corrective emotional experiences.
Yeah.
Where when we move towards each other and there's a way of connection of I love you, or are we good, or I care about you, or have a good week, or what do you need from me today, whatever. There's like this experience of I am cared for by this person. Yep. And, building that easy language in marriage, it's not easy to do, but building that common language in marriage is really important. So
good.
turn towards your partner.
Turn towards your partner. I love that. Anybody else got a word of encouragement for those that are trying to take next steps towards health and wellness?
I don't know how, if I explain it, it'll sound like encouragement, but I kind of always talk with my students about you can't rebuild the house while it's still on fire, right? That we have to take it step by step, and that, we're often trying to resolve the symptom, right? Or we're trying to resolve the behavior. So, my encouragement is like to take care of yourself, to take good care of yourself, and to surround yourself with the people who also, kind of to your point, want to come alongside you and take care of you as well. And I feel like I'm consistently saying it's not your fault. There's a lot of these things we don't get taught. And so it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to acknowledge. So, but yeah.
That's great. Pastor Troy, you got something?
Man, I think I would echo a lot of what Jody just said. I think the phrase that has been on repeat in my mind is be mindful of how you treat yourself. Not like treating yourself, but how you treat yourself. The way you
treat yourself.
Yeah, no, but how you treat yourself, like how you talk to yourself.
Right.
The things that you do for your own, again, enjoyment and pleasure, the things that you do for others that are life-giving, right? When you're talking about this idea of grit and resilience, and I'm like, man, I'm just thinking back to my life, and I'm like, for the only thing I ever learned how to do was grit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing else. It's just grit, and I put myself in positions. Even now, it's like I just choose grit. And it's like, hey. Like, that's why that prayer, let me be easy for a moment, that phrase in that prayer, every time I get to that point, I break down. Because I'm like, that's just a foreign concept to my body.
Yeah.
It's to be easy. Like, you know me, you spend enough time with me.
Right.
Is
seldom easy. No.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
just playing.
So that's one thing I would encourage people. Hey, like, let yourself be easy for a moment.
Yeah.
Be mindful of how you're treating yourself, and like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, I even think back, we're talking about when you're talking about pleasure stacking, I was 100% certain when you said the phrase pleasure stacking, you were going to say, don't do that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
that's because that's just the framework that I inherited and
in
that I
your
still
mind.
build with. It is taken intentional, systematic deconstruction of that
Yeah.
for me to begin to enjoy the things that I've been blessed with.
Yeah, to see it as
You
important.
know, it's like I like God has blessed me with this. You know, it's okay. So when I hear Suzette talk about turning towards that Gottman thing, it reminds me of the passage in Scripture: "Draw nigh to me, and I will draw nigh to you." King James, I know.
That
Can you
is King
translate
James.
that?
That was King James. Like, can you help us with that in the NIV, please?
Like,
Draw
come closer
near?
to me, draw near to me.
Yeah.
And you'll recognize that I'm drawing near to you. This is
Good.
God's invitation, to His people. And that image is framed so much differently in my mind now.
Yeah.
Draw near to me used to mean pray for an hour every morning, read X amount of scripture, do X amount of things, and if you slip up in any capacity, shame on you.
Yeah.
Now,
And now you got to double all that performance.
yep, you got to
because
make
you
up
messed
for
up.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's this idea of I'm just gonna look and gaze at my God, and when I gaze at my God, I lock eyes with Him. I see that He's locking eyes on me.
Yeah.
Like
that's
in
good.
that image of God,
Already gazing at you.
He's already looking at
Already.
me. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Already.
turn and I look. I'm like, oh, you're already looking at me.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, and that picture, and it's like I'm gonna scoot in closer. I'm gonna scoot in a little bit closer, and as I scoot in closer, He's scooching in closer.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
and
good.
that frames it altogether differently for me.
Yeah.
So
I
love that.
I had a hard. No, my parents just moved here.
Yeah.
They live like a mile from my house, and I just moved. Things for making me cry, Pastor Troy, as usual.
I just want to say that both Suzette and Troy are crying.
I
with
sucked
us.
that
you
tear
crying,
back up.
Pastor
Look,
Jack?
I hit the reverse button on it. Look,
I didn't.
I just got
saying.
moist ducks, but I'm good.
All kinds of
Moist
awkwardness
ducks.
here.
That was
on
the
stage,
weirdest combination
everybody.
of words.
Awkwardness
Moist-
on the podcast.
I'm not
Jody.
grossed out by the
I'm
word
usually
moist
the
like
crier
many
too,
people.
so this is.
But that was.
I'm so strong.
I'm sorry, Suzette. You were saying.
Oh, thanks
in our
for
last few
derailing me,
moments
Pastor
together.
Jack. Oh, our
Yeah.
last few minutes. Okay, let me focus. My parents live here now. They just moved here, and we haven't lived near each other in like 20 years. We're close, but we haven't spent regular time together. And I had a hard day, or just a long day, or something. I was driving home. I was at church, but it wasn't church that was hard. I was driving home, and I called my mom, and I'm like, it's like 8:30. I was like, Mama, can I just come by for a hug real quick? I just need a mom hug. And she's like, yeah, that's why I moved here.
Yeah.
It was for me to come hug her. And so I stopped by, get a hug. I talked to my mom and dad for like 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, cool, I got to go home to Willie, who I'm excited to see. And it sounded bad. and she's like, okay, bye. And I was like, that was such an interesting experience that I haven't really had in adulthood,
Yeah.
And I feel like, that's how the Lord is with us.
Yep.
It's kind of like my mommy. I'm here waiting to hug you. It's not that she's at the door, but as soon as I come to the door, there she is.
Yep.
She's excited that I called. She's glad I came by just for a minute. And then I'm like, Mom, I got to go. And she's like, go ahead, babe. She's like, no, go, you know? And that's such a sign of pure love. And you are giving that to your 2, almost 3 children.
Right. No, and I think that's great. I think you guys have all said really profound things, and I just want to echo those. I think I know that those are helpful to those that are listening, and I would just say we have to be mindful that, like, in all the things that we think are so important all the time that kind of almost try to run our lives, I think we have to pull back and be able to understand there's nothing probably more important than taking care of our physical health,
Yeah.
but also our spiritual health. I think we talk a lot about this. If we're minding our spiritual health, right, and our physical health, then we begin living out of this overflow place of connection with God, and where our life begins to function differently because we're learning to be before do.
Yep.
And so I think oftentimes what you're talking about is sitting and being with God, gazing upon Him, knowing that He's already looking back at you, experiencing the embrace of God, being comforted in that, right? But then also using the faculties that we have with our body to be able to engage in other things that continue to stretch us, whether it be painting, whether it be literal stretching, you know what I mean? Whether it be going out for a walk. I know Linda and I, we've been implementing the practice of going on a walk together.
That is so mentally healthy. That's so holistically
we have our
healthy.
park. We know where we're going. We use it for dialogue with one another, but also we use it for reflection and just hang out. And it's been really life-giving. And I just think we have to be mindful that, look, all these things that we think are so important, we have to mind ourselves that we're not going to be able to do any of those things if we don't first care for our body that God has given us, but also care for our spiritual life.
Yeah.
And staying close and connected with God. And so This has been a rich moment and an awesome time hanging out with all of you.
thanks.
Thank you, Suzette and Jody, and as always, Pastor Troy. For those that are in the room, Pastor Linda, Pastor Josh, we appreciate you.
Yay.
And thank you, Pastor Jack.
Thank you, thank
Thank
you,
you, Pastor Jack.
I
Thank
still
you.
can't believe he gave me the Elmo voice. That's
I
messed up.
know.
Sesame Street made fun of me. That's
That's
okay.
because they didn't
That's
hear
fine.
what we heard before we hit roll.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right,
That's fine.
right.
It's fine.
Like, we heard-
But we love you guys. We thank you to our podcast listeners from wherever you might be watching or listening from. We can't wait to be with you again soon. But until then, take care. So messed up, man. Hey, so messed up. And he made fun of Happy Wednesday. I'm telling you, we said it was going to be What's Up Wednesday. Look, okay, he just going to keep laughing. You guys are going to just sit here
What's
staring
up
at me.
Wednesday?
What's
How
up
we doing?
Yeah, that's
Wednesday?
fine.
I'm not
Whatever.
gonna-
I'm going to stop talking.
We're not gonna rap. We're not gonna end with a rap.
You want to rap? You got to rap?
I don't think I have an appropriate.
Don't got to rap. That's okay.
Okay.
I don't have an
Okay.
appropriate
Mike-
rap.
Michael W. Smith?
We're out of here.
How about a Michael W. Smith song?
Can
I offer you an Amy Grant song?
I am reclaiming this podcast. We are done.
Cut
We're
and
out of
print. Dynamite.
See you next
That was great.
See you next week.
Done.